Alright, let's see how we can bring this guy to Unity. Okay, so first thing we need is, of course, the model. So we go for File, Export Selections, and I can call this guy foliage01 and just export it. Now back here to Unity, we can then go import new asset and grab foliage01, and it's in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna create a material, right, for our model, and this is gonna be the foliage 01 material. Okay, for the foliage 01, I just need to grab it and go to the material section and grab our new material and just put it in here, right? And that should and then we hit apply there, or just apply here also, yeah. And we'll have the material set. Okay, and let's take a look at that material. And now one thing we do need is the rendering mode has to be some sort of like a transparent, and we have three options. Cutout will be cutting things out in a harsh way, and fade will have it's still gonna cut out, but it's also gonna cut out everything, but it's gonna give you the option of having a gradient, right? Have half transparency in the middle. Transparent will make it see-through, but it's not gonna cut off the reflection. So this is more built for glass or plastic. So we're gonna use fade, and then this time, okay. All right, let's take a look at the channels we have. We have albedo channel, but it does have actually it does use the transparency, and it's going to use the alpha channel of the albedo as transparency. It's also going to use metallics alpha as the smoothness, as you can see here. And we also have normal map. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab those maps from designer. So that means we cannot just use this base color. We have to compose the opacity into the alpha channel. So let me Control C to copy that, Control V to paste it here, and we use RGBA split to split the RGB from our base color, and we do RGBA merge, and we merge RGB back together, but this time alpha will be our opacity, and this is what we have, right? Let me go save this guy, and it's gonna be our new albedo. All right, so normal map is just gonna be a reversed normal map, if I do remember this correctly, because Unity seems to be using OpenGL as normal map, while the Substance is using DirectX, so it's basically flipped. Okay, it's very easy to fix. So let me go ahead and just save this flipped normal, and that's gonna be our new normal map. Okay, now one more thing, if you do recall, we have metallic, and then the roughness, or actually, if you take a look at the naming here, it's smoothness, right? Smoothness is the alpha. So that means we need to get a smoothness out of the roughness. A practical way would be if I do a transformation 2D to get it here. A practical way is just gonna be do a reverse or invert, right? To invert roughness. So you know that the roughness and smoothness basically means the offset, right? So what we do is create a RGBA split and merge again. RGBA merge, right? So we just connect that to here and just the same thing, right? RGB, and then that goes to there, and that's gonna be our final metallic. Save it as metallic. All right, cool. That's our textures. So back here to Unity, we just need to import the maps. So we have albedo, normal map, and metallic. Import those three things. Now for normal map, you have to tell it is a normal map. So you just change that to normal map and apply. For the others, should be fine. For the metallic, we could change it to not as RGB. That way we make it a more accurate result. Okay, anyway, so to the material now, we can grab our albedo and drag it in. You can see the transparency here. We should also be able to drag our model into the scene and take a look. Right, you can see we do have our model here, and it does have transparency. And we can also drag the normal map, the metallic, okay, to redefine the roughness. Okay, yeah, and then we can also tweak this slider to this is basically a multiplier on top. One more thing here, the normal map can also be tweaked. That's what I like about some of the material setup Unity have. You can tweak it. You can just quickly change it to make it weaker or stronger. Okay, so I don't want it to be super strong, so something like this would be fine. Alright, now manually placing this around the level will be really difficult, right? And I think it's a little bit too small actually. So one thing I can do, of course, is grab this guy and go to the model, and I can tell it to be bigger when I'm importing it. So I'm gonna change it, make it like 5 times bigger than before, and then scroll down and then apply. Okay, yeah, this is probably too big, but it's already scaled. So I'm gonna change it back to 1. Actually 1 here. Alright, anyway, so manually placing this guy would be difficult because this is a lot of area we need to cover, right? So instead of doing that, we need to use some terrain features. On the terrain, if you click on it, you can see now you have 2 options to paint asset on it. There is a paint trees and paint details. Okay, so paint trees allows you to paint things like trees, but doesn't mean they have to be trees. It can be rock, it can be grass, whatever. This one is more detailed, so it's going to use the actual model and actual material you assign with it. It can allow you to do wind kind of stuff. Well, the paint details will allow you to paint 2 things. One is just a card. Another one is also allow you to paint a mesh, but if you try that, let me try add detail mesh and grab that in. Grab that and drag it into the detail panel. And you hit that, and you can pen it out, but you can see what you're getting. Change the opacity to something lower, maybe. Yeah, you can see we're painting these guys out, but they don't really respect the lighting. You could change it to the edit mode. You can change it to, so you go grab this guy, go to edit details, go to edit. You change the render mode to vertex lit. But you can see they're not allowing you to use the actual material you assigned earlier, so that's another problem. So this is pretty much for primitive shapes that you just don't really worry about the lighting and whatever. Just some extra very small stuff that you can add, I guess. So we don't really do this here. Let me go grab this guy and then go to edit details and do a remove to remove that. So back here to the tree settings, we can paint trees. Use the same thing, just add trees and add trees, and we can add our model in and then hit add. Okay, now we can paint on the terrain. You can see we're now actually populating the model, and it does have all the reflections, it does have all the shadows, although a little bit blurry, and it does have you know, everything you need, except that the backface is transparent. I don't think there is a setting in the that's in the material here that does allow you to render both sides. I think that's one of the things you cannot have from the default setup. But in the asset store, if you search for a double-sided shader, right, and there is a double-sided shader for free, so you can download that if you want to try that. But I'm just going to use the default shader. Then even I cannot see the back, I'm okay with it. Okay, anyway, it's up to you, right? You have to accept there's limitations, right? Because game engine is not supposed to be as good as a renderer. Maybe in the future they could be, but still for now I think there are many limitations. In Unreal Engine you can check transparency. When you use transparent, you kind of like have to the normal map will gray out. You use masked, you cannot have smooth transition. You have a like really solid mask. You can use temporal AA to do the masking, but you have dots on the transition area, so that's not perfect either. In my opinion, it's worse than Maya's viewport, because Maya's viewport does such a good job, right? So I don't know why their rendering pipeline is so limited when it comes to transparency. I guess this is because they're not doing real ray tracing, which real ray tracing will come soon, so I believe that's going to be really helpful to make it better. Anyway, so what I can do now is paint, but go to this here, I can paint it on the terrain, right? But there is a problem. You can see there's a setting for terrain head, and we can drag it to, you know, it should be able to change it. I don't know why in my version it doesn't change. Okay, I think it should. It's just maybe something I overlooked, but it doesn't change, and I have tried many things, it doesn't change. Like I can change it to something really high, it doesn't change. I can say, okay, I don't want it to have random, just give me whatever you have, 0.01, right? Not changing. 2, not changing. The default asset though, like I have actually imported some standard asset, and there's some tray in here, right? If I use those trays, those are speed tray trays. You can see I can make a bigger one, and then I can change the head to a smaller one. I got a smaller one, right? That's all working. So if you're using speed tray to make your asset, and it's gonna work. Okay, so for a default model, you may not have the full extent of the setting here working, but there is a workaround. Let me show you. So what we can do here is we don't really use this model itself, so I'm going to remove that. Okay. What I'm going to do here is go to game object, 3D object. I'm going to create a tray over here. Okay. So Unity has its own tray too, which is pretty cool, and that's actually looking almost like what speed tray can do. Maybe not as flexible, but it's doing its job. Anyway, so I'm not gonna create a trunk or anything, right? I just need one object to be placed in the center, which is gonna be my model. So what I do here is delete that trunk by selecting it in the node, and just delete that. And then I'm gonna add just a leaf here, because leaf allows you to, instead of using this plane here, we can change it to a mesh in the geometry mode, and we can use our mesh over here. Okay. All right, now you can see we got our model in, right? Then let's drag the group seed here until you got some straight ones. There should be a straight one somewhere. Yeah, that one. Yeah, this one. It's still tilted a little bit more than I want it to be, but then you can zoom in and just try to drag it to help it go a little bit more straight. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just have to give it a few try. It doesn't like that. It's still tilting. I can convert it back and just drag this again. I should be able to find a very good straight one. Yeah, this one is also tilted. I can try to drag it. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect anyways. So you can zoom in and really drag it to help it. Okay. I just need to find another one then. Oops. Yeah, just drag through this until you see a straight one, and just give it a little help to make it even more straight. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm gonna drag that one. Okay, it's still tilting, so go back here. You can also try to change the grow angle. Yeah, that sometimes helps. Yeah, that works. Anyway, So yeah, this is good enough now, and I'm happy with it. So what we do is here to the asset, you can see there is a tray actually got created, right? That's going to be the tray we use. So what we do is we just simply grab this guy and delete it, and we just have this tray now. And we go to our terrain, and we just go to the trays and add a new one, and we grab our new tray here and put it in here and add. Now this tray is its native tray, so every setting here should work, right? So if I now start painting, you can see now they are really small because the setting here is small, right? And I can drag it up, and I can paint bigger ones. Okay, so that way you have the benefit of being able to use those sliders. I can also check the random, right? Just have some random sizes. Yeah, that feels a little bit more better, right? All right, I can also go to the massive place trace. You know what? I don't want this guy, so let me go remove the trace. It's gonna place all the trays you have here in the list, and it's gonna place that amount. So I'm gonna go for like 50 and see what I got. It's a little less, maybe 500, 10 times more. Okay, and then we can start painting more and holding down shift to remove some of those guys. So that massive gives us a good coverage, and we just use left click drag to add new ones and shift to remove. Okay, to refine the distribution of this. Of course, we just have one foliage, so this still looks kind of like stupid, but it helps a little bit already. Okay. All right. One more thing is that when you zoom further away, if you don't change anything, you will see billboards. So what you have to do is go here, and one thing I have changed is the billboard start. The default setting is 50. Right? If you do that, if you zoom away, you can see now you see those billboard. Okay, and that's not very bad, but it still can be better, right? So you can drag that billboard start to push it further away a little bit more, and that way you don't really see them until you're really far away. And that would be something that we can do to make it just looks a little bit better. Okay. Anyway, so let me also erase some of the things here. Okay. All right. Now eventually you can also apply some wind on those foliage. So what you just have to do here is you have to, what you just need to do is, let me crank up the density and have a few more here so we can see it. So what I have to do to make winds is go to the game object, 3D object, and then wind zone. Okay, and you can change that the turbulence to change the man to, well, we can take a look at it right now by playing the game. And then we go to the scene. You can see now they are actually getting blown by wind. So what we can do is we can go to the terrain side, the wind zone, of course, and change the settings here to the turbulence maybe to change how they behave, right? But just be aware that the thing you have changed here will not actually affect, will not stay there if you're in the play mode. So if you go back, they'll go back. So remember that number. Anyway, so that's gonna be the things I want to talk about for the foliage. Of course, one foliage wouldn't be enough for you to make a good-looking terrain, but that's a good start, right? We can then create, go ahead and create some other different foliages and just put them all together. Oh, and by the way, if you want to create trays, try that tray thing, right? 3D object and then a tray. This tray can allow you to create some really cool tray already. You can go grab this branch, you can add new branches, and you can control how many branches you want to have. You can control their lengths. You can actually open that little curve here. You can drag that thing down to shrink them in, right? And then you can change their angle to make them tilt up and down. Okay, and you can drag those things to tweak their shape also. Or you can go back to procedural way, and also you can add leaf, right? And our grass can actually be used also as leaf. So let's do that. I'm going to change that to mesh again and use our grass as the leaf. Okay. Now suddenly we have a tree with leaf on it. Okay. Yeah. And we can also control how many leaf do we want by changing the frequency to have more or less. Just a grow angle also. I think that's too much. Let me lower that down. Okay, don't really need a lot. Yeah, and then that's our tree. And you, of course, down there you have two materials now, right? And one is the bark material, and it's now using our leaf material. We can just temporarily steal one of the Unity standard assets, environment, speed tray. So speed tray is also very good too. If you do have that, of course use that. I think that's better than what's going on here. But we can then use those textures. So that's gonna be the color, and that's gonna be the normal map. Okay, I think it's actually not the right thing, the right orientation, but it's fine, right? Now we have the tray here. I can delete this one, and back here to our asset, we will have a new tray asset. We just go here and use that tray also, right? So add tray, and we drag that in and add, and then we can put this tray here. And maybe that's too much, so let me lower down the density. That's smaller, and we can maybe a little bit more. Yeah, we can paint some tray in the scene. Okay. Make the brush bigger. Maybe I need more density. Yeah. Now I can paint a bunch of new trays in the scene just to make it look a little bit more interesting, right? All right, we can play the game and go to the scene and take a look at that. You can see all of our stuff are respecting, including the branches, and that's why I think that the settings. I mean, using the tray asset is better because we are able to use the terrain features like wind. Alright, cool. So that's gonna be it for the foliage tutorial. I hope that everything works. Or if you have something that you think that's worth mentioning, you can leave that in the comment. Okay, cool. Thanks for watching. See you next time.